This message today hit me really strong for me to speak about. I wasn't planning on making a video, but here I am right now. I enjoy doing things like this. I enjoy, especially when I feel like there's a possibility that this message from my experiences can reach out to somebody, even if it's one person. I won't stop what I'm doing until I'm led to do something else. But the purpose for this video is that high-ranking entities, you may call them demons, you can call them extraterrestrials from different dimensions. It's not one particular frequency of existence of consciousness. High-ranking entities, they remote view your life via your mind. They don't have to physically come here and, possess you. They have the natural, innate, evolved ability to remote view your life using your mind. And there are reasons for that. And there are also reasons as to why some people may not relate to this message. When you start to ascend with your process, especially if you've been meditating, especially if you've been cleaning out your system, and this is the most important thing, is that you clean out your system, your actual physiology, your body. And you find yourself eating more fruit because that's a high frequency food, and hopefully less meat consumption, eventually leading to no meat. And I'm not saying vegan, I'm just saying becoming more of a conscious eater because everyone's different. I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't eat meat. I'm not saying that from that perspective. But as far as the perspective as your kung fu means that you start to resonate and eat a certain way that works within your ascension process. And meditating is a way for you to, connect within yourself, your higher self. And in the process of doing so, you will start to ascend. It's almost like you start to become a more refined, high frequency receiver so that you can arrive at more clarity when you're in solitude. And that's the most important, that you meditate in solitude. So if you are someone who has been working in this way and any other way as well, towards your highest good, you are purging in a way that a lot of the things or the people or circumstances or jobs per se, they're starting to, they're starting to no longer exist in your life. They're starting to shed, or they're starting to kind of like contracts away from you, and you're finding yourself maybe more in the hermit mode or whatnot. Maybe you're afraid of that. And maybe you're afraid of who you really are to that extent, because you're afraid of arriving to your highest self. And sometimes for some people, there comes a time where you have to enter this almost like, you may want to say, hermit mode, so that you can sit in solitude and complete quietude with yourself. If any of this resonates with you, and you are ascending, this is when, as your conscious self starts to ascend, you become more of the light of your existence. You become more conscious, you become more joyful, you become more playful. You start to enjoy being alone even more. And when you're not alone, you're enjoying the company that you're with. And if you don't see separation between the company that you're with, as far as like family or friends, and seeing the same enjoyment with actual strangers in the street when you're getting a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, and you're just like in the moment. Maybe you're just like with the person who's attending. Well, I'm in New Jersey, so there's a state law where they have to attend to gas here. So I'm always speaking to the gas attendant, and you're just connecting with them if there's a connection. And you find the moment right there, and you kind of like lose yourself in the moment, and you just feel complete and lose yourself, meaning like nothing else kind of like exists, like your thoughts and the stuff that you have to do and where you're driving to, as an example. And if you find yourself just in the moment, completely present, that is an indication that you are becoming more of who you truly are. Not everybody came born with that kind of natural ability, so you call them a gift. You call this a gift, excuse me. This is like a gift because it's like you're reminding yourself the gift of yourself, of who you really are. What happens is that the more you start to align yourself with such things, and the more you start shedding, and the more you start working with your shadow work, your own inner perceivable demons and the things, and no matter where you are in your process, you're just working with it, you're aware of it, and you're also aware of the things that you can't, that you can't yet fully decode or push or purge out of your life, but you're working on it, These beings ascend with you. It's not that they ascend with you, but they have to work harder, more diligently to arrive to your arriving state. So a lot of these lower being entities that work with you, that starts to dissolve and disappear because now you find yourself in a higher route, they can't reach out to you. So within the other side, the dark side of this existence, there's a light side and a dark side, like yin and yang. They start appointing higher ranking entities that are more evolved to meet you there. Now that's like a blessing and a curse. You know, the curse is that now you find yourself saying, wow, I'm doing all this work, and every time I find myself in a beautiful place, it's like, pow, boom, wow, you know, what's going on? What just hit me? And the reason why is that intimately, they're going to work with you through your family, through your friends, through the things that you find joy the most. They may not, these higher ranking entities may not work with you directly anymore because you've been doing the work. And for those who haven't been doing the work and you're getting the directness, you have to also see that as an opportunity because they're showing you who they are. They are showing you who they are. So it doesn't matter that you're more in a higher level and somebody else is in a lower level. No, you require that lower level. That's actually even more important because that's the basin of your training. That's the basin of your Kung Fu. You need to have strong horse stance, like they say in Kung Fu, because you have to have strong legs. You have to have strong thighs. You have to have a strong stance in just being in your presence. And believe it or not, through the art of failing and being in your process and feeling and going through these emotions and working on your shadows and oftentimes not even feeling like you're good enough. And you start arriving at one thing really quick, which is like no expectations. Once you start arriving and transcending expectations, even desires, that's a hard one, but even desires. I'm not saying that you got to cut it out because it's not going to work like that. But once you start transcending it, because once you're truly in your form, there's nothing really to desire because you're just like enjoy with everything that you do. And most people are not going to understand that. You actually probably rub people off the wrong way. So they don't think something's wrong with you, right? And so if that kind of like resonates with you, then this message is definitely for you, you know. But even if you feel like it's not for you, I know that there's a lot of information here based on my approach and speaking to you that you will get. So there's no right or wrong about this. This is all perspective, and this is just me out of love unconditionally, just speaking as there are other people and platforms that spoke to me in return. So I'm just giving it back. So once you start to take in your higher authority, your new kind of like, how do you say, your new kind of like ranking yourself, you know, it's not so much of a title, but you know that you're working with a new authority, even if you don't know or you're not sure yet what you're going to be doing with your life. And if you are, awesome. But if you're not, it's still the same, right? But you're becoming more self-aware and you are in your complete humility. What happens is that the more you become present with yourself in this way, again, you took care of yourself, you're taking care of your body, and you're becoming more lighter, because that's the whole point of ascension, is because you become more of a light body physically. You start becoming more, your etheric field, your actual physical biology starts to become lighter. You don't have to be an athlete, but you feel like if you wanted to, you could. So in the beginning, these high-ranking entities will start seeing you. Even if you find yourself completely off grid with no TV, no internet for a minute, like I said, hermit mode, they do have the ability, intelligently so, to remote view via your mind. And although on one aspect, that's the only power that they have, is to manipulate you or attempt to manipulate you through certain ways of persuading you through your emotions, especially the emotions that you have not yet healed from, whether it's grief, sadness, anxiety, whether it's being like, maybe you're an empath, right? Or you're some kind of a medium and you find yourself in that. And now you're like becoming more sensitive. So now you're starting to hear that voice. And sometimes that voice doesn't make sense to you. That could be an indication that you are being remote viewed. You know, I believe Sadhguru said, and this is something that I understood, but he put it in so many powerful words. So I'm going to use him as an example. And I think that this is a very important fundamental to understand for you all that's listening to me at this point within this video, is that you are not your mind, you are not your body, you are not your experiences, and that is something to work with within this paradoxical reality, so that you can start to hear that encrypted message, so that for yourself, only within yourself, it starts to make sense if you've never heard it that way before. And the reason why I say that is because high or low, your mind is highly susceptible, in the same way that if you watch TV, you already start seeing like the logos of like McDonald's or these icons, and all of a sudden you find yourself hungry, right? And then, but then you make a decision afterwards and you say, well, I don't eat McDonald's. Ugh, who's going to do that? I did that when I was a kid. Well, I did. Maybe up until like 3 years ago. Once in a blue, even though I knew it wasn't good for me, right? But you make these decisions. But again, you made a decision based on persuasion, based on even humans' ability to tap into your mind of what you cannot control, because your mind is 90-something% water. So your mind is like the ocean. So using that commonality or that perspective, as I just noted, they have the ability to send messages to you. Now, if you are one who meditates, because at this point, if you're listening to me and you're resonating with me, and in your way, you are already meditating. And there are many forms of meditation, right? For me, it's simply closing my eyes. I said that in a video in the past. And because for some people, once they start to arrive, it's just simply just connecting. You know, different than when you turn on the TV. You already assume it's on, right? But once you start working with yourself with affirmations, and you start working with yourself and you're starting to meditate, you keep doing it. That's your kung fu. Kung fu means to keep repeating. That's your religion, to repeat a pattern of something within spirit. And they took the word religion and they turned it iconic and vesseled it into like, you have to pick this or that religion so that you can say either you're religious or not. But if you think about the etymology of religion, is that, for example, if I wanted to use that term, is that if somebody asks me, and they do, because I'm an acupuncturist and I get a lot of clients that come to me, and they tend to, you know, just like with politics, they're like, are you Republican? Are you Democrat? You know, and they'll say, oh, what religion are you? You're Puerto Rican. I'm Puerto Rican, by the way. Woohoo! Paquetudo sepa. No. No, but kind of like New Yorican. Spanglish all the way. But if what I lost my train of thought. Give me a second. Okay, I'm back. I had to actually cut off my camera and remind myself what I was talking about. And sometimes I just have too much fun when I'm alone. So really quick, your religion. For me, when people ask me that, what's your religion? I say religion, and it turns their heads because I'm not always direct, because people ask for direct answers, and maybe that's the lesson for them or for me at the same time, because the whole point is to crack the direct process. If you're going to actually speak to me, and if you really want to get to know me a little bit deeper, and I mean, I'm spicy that way, so there's reasons for that, because I'm the medicine man. I walk with many medicines, and I don't know how not to, because that's the joy. You know, my joy is in the healing arts, you know? So people ask me, what's your religion? So I look at them, and because I respect all religions, by the way, I respect everyone's process, and I have no judgment towards anything or anyone. But if you're going to ask me a question, I will speak based on my conscious moment with complete reverence that they gave me space to speak. So this is never like tearing down somebody else's belief system, but when people are curious, ooh, that's a door now. And if they have that openness, then they can listen to me. And I always tell people, don't believe me. I don't want you to believe me. I just want you to receive. And then you make your own decision on your own. If you're asking me a question, otherwise, then what's the point, right? So what's your religion, Marcus? Well, my religion is my practice. And I look at them. And sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. Basically, spirit is who I am. So it's like saying practicing spirituality for me. Maybe I said it like that. I'm practicing my spirituality. And, you know, you can say that's like you're practicing your kung fu, you're practicing your animal style. You know, if you're into like different styles of kung fu, like praying mantis, you know, I'm not a praying mantis practitioner, but I like to mimic the, I like that. I'm a Xingyi practitioner. So in case there are any martial artists there, but I'm a big fan of praying mantis kung fu. But when you practice it, you're practicing the spirit of the animal. And when you start invoking that spirit, you become that lesson of that animal, if you're into, again, Chinese martial arts per se. So the same thing is that you practice your religion, you practice spirituality, you practice to arrive towards something. And you have to start somewhere. It's like 101, you know? And so I basically tell people is that religion, for the etymology, the meaning of religion, is my practice. Spirit I am. And once you start arriving at your kung fu, then you become who you are. So spirit I am, experiencing being a human vessel with complete joy. And that becomes the miracle, the miraculo, which is the effect of reflection back at you, because you're speaking and you're being receiving something from someone. So that's the miracle. The moment is the miracle. You don't have to go to church for the miracles. But if you do go to church, then you get an expansive set of miracles, because like a martial artist, you train at home by yourself. And when you go to class, when you go to temple, or when you go to a church, right? Then you go and you work with the community of people, because that's the whole point for me. If I was going to go to a church, it's the beautiful people who are there. That there's a sense of like-minded connection, and there I can actually just being present with people, whether I'm verbal and I like to just interact with people, or maybe in my, let's say, introvert sense of self, I just want to experience God with people. But it's no separate. Maybe different for some people, but it's not separate than if you're in the park alone, or you're in a park and a whole bunch of children are playing and you're in your own meditation and people are not aware of what you're doing. You're just sitting there and you are in your Zen. So that's meditation. Meditation is, it doesn't matter the outside realm or the circumstances, but how do you experience that? How do you arrive there? By working within yourself. And that's Kung Fu 101. That's Boxing 101. You start practicing what was taught to you. Let's say if you're learning how to be a boxer, martial artist, right? And you start to practice it until you start to interweave and invoke something from there. And then you go sparring and you get your butt whipped many, many times over, because what you're doing is you're building a bridge of what worked and what didn't. And you come back and you lick your emotional or physical wounds, and you find yourself, maybe wanting to quit, right? So now what happens is that your insecurities, your inner demons, right? They start to show themselves. So that's what Kung Fu is. It's the beauty of it. So it's just not separate whether it's your religion or your physical Kung Fu. It's the hidden pearl of what I'm saying behind the words. Not getting stuck with Kung Fu or religion or even the term spirit or even the word love. And those who work within their quietude and their solidarity, and they work within spirit, they start to come up with what I guess the point in the message of the point of this message is that they start to actually understand what I'm saying, right? And you understand what I'm saying, and it's hitting you, and you're resonating with it, and maybe you're like, man, it's like as if I know this person, That means you're arising. That means you are walking amongst others who are also arising in your own individual way. So that means you've been doing the inner work. Having said that, you start to meditate, going deeper. And again, message is for certain people. You start to understand your inner voice. You start hearing your inner voice. And for a long time, you're like, wow, my inner voice is always speaking to me. And through that inner voice, I get my guides. I speak with my higher authority, my higher self, God within, right? Everybody's at a different frequency of that. But this is what happens. This is the message which I'm trying to get to, is that you have more than one voice, and they will always come masked as the voice that you hear. Maybe it could be your voice. It can be actual voice, like Marcus, I'm speaking to you, right? And you know what I'm talking about when you're meditating, right? And then what happens is that you start to having to go deeper with knowing which one's your voice and which one's not. Quite commonly, it's your ego, right? That's the easy one to understand. When I'm meditating, as an example, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm hungry. I'm like, cállate, be quiet. I'm trying to meditate. Well, I'm hungry, and I'm like annoyed, right? I'm like, jeez, now I'm hungry. Now I have thoughts of food. Again, like McDonald's, you get the ego will show you these symbols, or they'll speak to you with words, and that's your ego mind, right? And then you start to push it away, and it comes up stronger, especially if you're a strong individual. And so that is something for you not to evade or fight, because that becomes inner conflict. It's for you to come to peace with that in your way. I'm not going to go into that, but you can hit me up privately, and we can always do consultations if you want to go into that session type. And I do take consultations, just so you know, whatnot. But as we're talking about like these more ascended entities now, we're talking about that now you're aware of your ego mind. And you know how to sometimes put him or her aside while you're working with your meditation. You know how to put them into their own Kung Fu and meditation while you're doing your meditation. And oftentimes you know how to have them come and dance and sing in symphony with your meditation, so you become one with your ego mind. So in the Vedic system, the ego mind can be associated, from my perspective, as the solar plexus. So that's the first, the root, the sacral, and then coming up from the unconscious, right? From the root, Mother Earth connecting to you, which is the root. And then the sacred, right? That is the first temple, right? That is the first formation of the most solid part of your body. If you understand the physiology and anatomy of your actual physical body, and what your hips mean to you, and how your sacrum and your hips form an articulation in a healthy state of a human, and how that actually has to be strong, just like your lower Kung Fu stance, so that your spine can be strong to receive the strong messages. The stronger your antenna, the stronger your spine, the more upright you are. Like in Chinese medicine, they call it your upright chi. When you're feeling down, most commonly men actually who experience ED, which is erectile dysfunction. And I've seen men in their 20s and 30s, and it could be mental, it could be physical, it could be psychological, it could be pathological. But one thing I noticed from my experiences, I don't want to say 100%, but it's a big percentage. So I don't want to put a number out there, but it's a very high percentage, more than 90. They tend to sit down in the clinic table while they're on the table, and I'm standing there tired. So he's standing on it. And I'm going to try to show you. They tend to stand like this because I have to pay attention. You know, I'm paying attention to everything. I'm an acupuncturist. So they tend to, and the kindred men that are working hard for their loved ones at home, they tend to go like this and they look up and you just want to hug them. You know, they go like that, but you look at the back, look at the neck. They're like that. And it could be that day they were tired at work, but they're seeing me once or twice a week. And that's when your upright chi, that's the energy field of your frequency. It's not, right? And then what happens is that your lungs collapse inside. You're not breathing right. You lose less energy. You're just like not tapped in. And commonly men, from my experiences, experience ED. They also have that symptom that I see as a gauge for me to see that they're not feeling upright in life, right? So upright in life, Kung Fu form. You know what I'm saying, right? So in your Kung Fu, to feel upright, right? Because this is an uppercut in boxing, but in Kung Fu, there might be another uppercut here. For you to do that, and you're like this, it's going to require so much energy, you're just going to say, never mind. You got to understand your basin, right? So your energy of feeling upright in life, that's important to practice, even if you don't. So while you're working on your health and the reasons why you may not feel upright, it could be physical, emotional, psychological, right? But you put the prayer of affirmation in action by paying attention after you hear this message to become more upright. So now you're becoming more upright, even if you don't feel like it. I'm talking to you this video, and I'm talking to you like this, and I'm like, yo, I'm an acupuncturist. come see me. No, you gotta have a sense of presentation when you're speaking to, and many people do this at work, right? And when they go home, what happens? They collapse, right? Because that's like a false positive. They're doing it so that people can see them. The whole point is that, do that when you're outside, but then come home and pay attention now when you're by yourself, right? Pay attention, see yourself, pay attention. Listen, hear yourself speak. Your body's speaking to you all the time. Look in the mirror, pay attention. So the solar plexus is attributed to the ego mind, ego energy in motion from the lower construct of your subconscious mind that brings things up to the conscious. So the more you're meditating, the more your ego will show itself. It's the solar plexus, right? It's the solar, meaning that it illuminates all of who you are and all of who you're not. And once you start understanding no judgment unto yourself, you accept more of your ego mind. Your upright chi needs that power once you understand how to work with that as an inner alchemist, whether it's through yoga or qigong, right? And once you start doing that, what happens is that when you're not working with your ego mind, the next one is your what? Your heart chakra, over the first kind of like physical veil that you have here, which is your physical diaphragm. So it's like going into another realm. So everything here is like kind of like your whole gut biome, your intestines and all this stuff, right? It's like all down here below that diaphragm. And the solar plexus obviously is getting fed by the electromagnetic chemistry of food. So it's not a coincidence that that's where the fulcrum of your breathing is when you start experiencing that heat vitality. If you understand how to meditate deeper, and you start to arrive at the chi dynamics that you're actually not just incubating, but you're attracting into you, and then you start to manifest, you start incubating it so that you can build up that chi. You start building up that vitality. So what happens is that if you haven't healed from your lower ego mind, your ego becomes bigger. And you meet that in the spiritual community per se, with people who feel like they got it and they're sitting upright and they understand everything I'm saying. But then they're just like walking around with that fine line between walking with authority and complete humility and in presence, not to say that you're not going to speak your mind, but with like almost like a false positive, because that person, not even to be judged, is working in their process. And that's okay. and they may or may not be aware, but you see, as you start arriving to the higher chakra sense of your experiences, when you get your ego mind and you start to experience your actual ego while you're meditating, because you're building up and cultivating your energy when you're meditating. So you're you're heating up the lower basin of your body, right? And that heat that starts cooking up, it starts to refine itself to the, again, we're talking about alchemy. We're talking about real physical chemistry, because you start to what? Heat up. You start to cook. So a lot of meditators, people who meditate, including myself, if you didn't eat right that day, you will heat up to a point where you start breaking up a sweat. You don't have to do a physical kung fu form or qigong stance to hold it, and you can, and you'll find yourself sweating. That's good, because that heat is actually arriving, and you're actually releasing all of that, and you're helping your body to purge. So again, meditating can help actually, and will help to stimulate, just by physical breathing correctly, your entire lymphatic system, and will harmonize your endocrine system, your hormones, male and female. So as that's happening, right, all of that chemistry is building you up now. You're meditating more often, and you're now meditating, you're receiving, and you're arriving to a higher state. You're actually now expanding on your gifts, whether it's clairvoyancy, all of the clairs, right? Clairaudience. You're able to hear things. You're able to hear people's minds. You're able to see their actions. You're starting to see things even more conscious. So you're becoming more conscious of maybe what you've been doing your whole life, but now it's becoming more of a gift. So that is bringing it to the higher realms. As you're doing that, I would say, pay attention, if you haven't already, to that inner voice that sometimes it's not your ego that's speaking. Woo. It is not your ego that's speaking. So once you've mastered your ego mind, you can hear your ego mind speaking, right? That's the one that offers you conflict. That's like yourself. And sometimes it doesn't feel like it, because you're like picturing that other person that pissed you off that day at work. And then like they're like that, and you're just like, you forgot that you're meditating, and you're just like, yeah, this is what I should have told them today. Well, that is your ego mind illuminating. So that is your ego mind illuminating for you to observe. And that's part of the process of meditating. You find yourself working with that so that you can find quietude and silencing. You may want to say, discovering how to naturally detach from your ego mind, which is your process. And that's a whole different conversation. However, even if you're saying, well, I'm still working on that, that's fine, but you are becoming aware of your ego mind. You may want to say, I just want to say for like just this purpose, it's like, let's say that's your lower mind. And then your higher mind is when you find moments or these glimpses of these epiphanies where you're just there. Right? And in Chinese, they call that Wu Ji state, which is the state of void. Well, that's the higher level of the beginning of understanding something even higher. But if you want to look that up, it's called WUJI, which is the state of void, the state of emptiness, which a lot of people are afraid, because that's the state of where you can start to create some from a vessel of no longer attaching to anything, but connecting with all of your sensory systems, completely connected in the moment. Is where that, how they say you can manifest or you can attract without attempting to. You just attract more of who you are, because you are remembering how to arrive at that internal frequency of that Wu Ji state, right? But these entities, these beings, once you start arriving there, so they don't mess with you when you're there, because they got you where they want you. You're just here working on you, which is what's necessary, right? Being a hermit is like you working on you. But once you become that hermit, like it's like you're actually flowing in the vessel of no longer saying, well, I'm working on being a hermit right now. You just become that. Like everybody disappears from your life, as an example. And now you're just like freaking out because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm all alone. And once you understand that realm of suffering, and you are the one that's still listening to this video that already arrived beyond the suffering. And if you're not arriving that, hopefully this is something so that you can hear that it's a necessary component in your experiences, is that for you to be able to, they say, be enlightened, to turn on the light from within, and how you may want to say enlightened, within, the light from within is to simply be in quietude with yourself when the attachment seems to naturally not exist, in the art of quietude. And you can't try to arrive at through affirmations. The affirmations will help you to get you there. It's almost like saying, I'm preparing for my ceremony, right? But there comes a point where it's just like, you've done it so many times, it's just, you just find yourself there. But you can only arrive there, right? Because you've been doing all that work, and you've known the difference of actually getting to that point. So that's important too, because that gives you the internal vision to be able to speak to someone else, or to just be able to like understand yourself even more as a human being. These are part of your experiences. So now you're more aware of your ego mind, and you are aware of your inner voice when your voice is speaking, right? And sometimes it's actually your higher mind speaking to yourself, right? And that could be like that higher aspect of your ego mind, when your ego mind is working in synchronicity to delivering a message of the unconscious, because now it's like almost like saying your ego mind is serving you. And if you serve it, then you guys are working in synchronicity of complete ego. One example is like stoicism would be a term, being virtuous and whatnot, right? And sitting with a label, that is the ego, right? That's not good or bad. That's just like you're walking with that label. You know, I'm a warrior, and I've been a warrior. I'm a Kung Fu, I'm a Sifu. You know, I've been teaching Kung Fu for a very long time. And although I walk with this wisdom, you know, I'm not going to tell you this, you know, I'm just going to like let you observe it and discover it for yourself. And here I am being hyper aware of it, right? And I might be right. Actually, I might be right, but you see how the ego is involved too, right? And maybe I'm not seeing it yet. So for me to have known that, I can tell you, and I can actually act it out for you, because I've been there 10,000 times. So it's not even good or bad. It doesn't matter if I'm judged or not. It's that now you can find humor in it. You can find humor with your ego, because it's kind of like funny once you're kind of like above it, because now you're overseeing, or you're overstanding what you've been trying to understand, right? But we're talking about, as I said in past videos, or one past video, is that now once you understand, and with time you start to oversee or overstand. Now what a lot of the people are saying is understanding, because now you have the dichotomy of understanding, overstanding, and you're bringing both to your heart as a vessel for you to be able to see the two in your meditation, or after you're meditating and it's becoming illuminated with you, to you in your outer journey at the same time, because that's the whole point of working within this paradox, right? The inner journey and outer journey is to interweave and to integrate, to no longer be separate between the two. So when you're too busy doing that, you're not attached to anything, because you're finding joy within yourself and in your process. You're waking up, going to sleep, and you're processing it, or you're working on, you're about to work on it when you come home from work, and you're just like in your process, because you know that there comes a point in your life where it's like the only way, it's your way. And then if you find yourself miserable in that way, or if you find yourself like going through a lot of emotional turmoil, now you have nobody else to blame. At least it's you to you to you. And that becomes beautiful. It becomes powerful. It's because now you start, it becomes more amplified though. All of that lower work was necessary for you to be able to have a strong basin, so that you can learn how to now fly. And you cannot fly until you understand that aspect. Those that say they fly, well, first of all, they wouldn't be saying that they're flying. They would be busy flying. But there are those who love to teach, and they fly and they come back. They descend. And that's why a lot of people are coining these yogis and these speakers as ascended masters, because they choose to come back to speak and to illuminate those who are willing and able and capable of hearing, not believing. Those real masters don't even want the title. They're like regular people. They really are. And they're people that may or may not be on social media, you know. However, when you find yourself within that frequency, you start meeting them on social media, off social media. And once you start making the space, and you're no longer with the people who have been holding you down within your journey, you know, then you make space to meet them everywhere. And oftentimes they're unspoken words. It's just presence. It could be from a distance while you're sitting in the park and you're both observing, you know, just a flock of geese just coming. And then you both maybe smile at each other. Or maybe you don't even look at each other, but you're reading each other's minds. And I'll stop there. But there's another voice that's high ranking. And that voice will permeate through your unconscious into your ecosystem. And it can often, commonly, not often, but commonly infiltrate even that inner voice when you listen. And how do you know? Oh, that's, you know, it's different to, you know, it's like me giving out the answers to the quiz, to the test of your experiences. So it's like, in a sense, it's like taboo. You don't talk about it, because the whole point is that if you've been arriving to this and you're becoming aware that these entities are being attracted to your ascension. Because when you ascend individually as a hermit or in your complete quietude, you alter this matrix. You alter the false identities in the minds of other people who, without the humans' minds, without the collective minds of humans, then the false matrix the false reality cannot exist. Humans cannot be influenced if everyone awakens in their mind. So going back to that quote that I said before, what is that? I guess I would say is that the answer to those, to the questions, I almost don't want to talk about it because it kind of like, I don't know, well, maybe I want to see, but the answers will always be revealed from within. That's why it just doesn't really matter. You could come up with a list even more than I, because it's you to you to you. My stuff is going to be from my experiences, and maybe if it might help, yeah, I'll share that. But it's to remember that you don't own your mind. You don't own your body. You don't own your experiences. And once you can see that, even if it's hard to detach from it, and you say it to yourself in your way, you may want to actually use that as a mantra. I am not my mind. I am not my body. I am not my experiences. Again, Sadhguru actually recommended that. And what that does do is that it prepares you for your self-realization or your great awakening, because the world cannot awaken until you do. Because if you are experiencing the great awakening in this world, then you're attracting that. You are the one creating that. Because it's all in your mind. Even me. Even as I speak with this technology, everything that you're experiencing, hearing, receiving as a receiver you are through your sensory system is being interpreted inside your mind. And you prove it to scientists that you actually, to scientists, prove it to them, not me because I'm not a scientist, how you exist outside of your mind. The scientists will actually tell you conclusively that there's no way to prove that one exists outside of their mind. That is the code to allow yourself to reveal to yourself. That's needed. It's like the key, the code. You are the key. Sometimes hearing it, maybe it's happening through me, if you're listening to me. And once you become aware, there's nothing really to do except that if you're not your mind, it doesn't matter if your mind becomes infiltrated, because your mind, my mind, will have maniacal experiences of things disappearing on me when I'm working on something that's working towards my higher self. When I'm creating this video per se, and things start disappearing on me, and start to work and try to get my emotional field down. So it happens in sometimes subtle ways and sometimes in very harsh ways. Like all of a sudden you get a phone call from a family member and they're like, I need you now, I have an emergency. And here you are trying to get into hermit mode, and now you can't think and focus. That's how they'll get you. It's not a coincidence. It doesn't exist. Coincidences do not exist. That is the higher ranking entities. Just like watching a TV show, you're doing it. You don't have to have a high mind to turn on the technology. Your mind has the technology to reciprocate information. And once you understand that you are not your mind, that even your mind of experiences is not even the I am from within, then you start to no longer keep fear as your ally, or the fears of these entities, these forces, because they want to and they will. In their minds, they're not here to try. They're going to destroy you. And that was the message for me. I will kill you. It was told to me by my guides the other day, I'll share his name. He goes by the name of Enlil. And I was very aware of him. He's not even one of the highest rankings, but he's high as heck. And if you look, you research him and the more original text, you'll have an idea that it's not that he's a person or not, but that conscious stem, that actual entity of that creation exists. And one can only arrive to those higher attacks when you're rising up, because as you start arriving towards the astral realm of your reality, the dream state realm, no longer veiled, where it's now becoming anchored, as above, so below, right? As within, so without. As the soul, so the universe, right? It kind of lines up with the law of comprehension, so that you can comprehend that you're not separate. Just you alone, will dismantle your reality and create whatever heaven or whatever your new world or your new earth means to you. Yes, there will be work that needs to be done, because all of a sudden you will be aligned to it. and you probably are aligning to it in your way. And sometimes it may look slow and sluggish because, again, there's too many dark forces within your ancestral line. Just to speak about just that one, your bloodline alone, there's other things. I'm not even going to go there, but what I think what the content of what should matter right now is that we can't even get to the higher stuff if you don't understand your ancestry. That it could be a curse from your ancestors from 500 years ago, and they were working with a false god, a false prophet, a false religion. And they became aware of it maybe, and they start to ascend, but they fell short of it. That could be your burden. Doesn't always have to be from this reality. Maybe you didn't even, maybe you weren't even, maybe it was imprinted in you and this is your first time in this world as a being you are. But you took an agreement. And the whole point is to remember that everything that is happening to you could never have happened without your permission. And if you can't get past of what I just said, there's no point in going onward with the message. Or keep going anyway. Keep going because, it becomes imprinted if you're curious. Curiosity is badass, seriously, because, you might need it. Maybe this message will, you might not remember me or the message, but all of a sudden it's like you speaking, because I'm imprinting something in you because you are given permission to. It's not always conscious. It's the subconscious imprint that actually can hinder or can actually help you to manifest even deeper. It's for you to understand your inner higher frequency voice of no voice, the one who cannot be seen. You can't see yourself in the mirror. Where is that voice coming from? Even that higher voice of yours, when you're getting the voice from the angels, the one receiving the voice and the one emitting the voice. So I would take this as an opportunity that for you to become more crystallized, crystals, Christ, crystals, within each cell in your body, not just your pineal gland. Your carbon body, because we are carbon beings the same, will start to burn and it'll start to fume an evolution, no different than an actual physical crystallized diamond, you may want to say. And that temperament and these experiences are to remind you the alchemist that you truly are. And if you hung out with me this long with this message and you're resonating with it, even if you haven't been doing that much with the work, oh yeah, you're the one. Oh yeah. You're the one to remember. You're the one to re-encode. You're that intelligent because maybe the first 2 or 3 minutes of even less of my message would have been already changed, and that's okay. That's not for them. We're not wasting our time with people who are working in their journey, right? You're working on yourself. So I feel completely humbled that me and you are still hanging out here. It makes me continue doing what I'm doing, and it expands me. Even if we never physically meet, it allows me to work with my innermost joy and to lose my fears, because it's a challenge. It can be a challenge for me to speak into a camera. I like to speak. Not that I'm not nervous, but I like to speak in front of a live audience. When I was teaching either martial arts when I was younger, or in a platform of Chinese medicine. I used to be a professor at acupuncture school, and doing talks and whatnot. And I get completely connected with the people who are coming to me, and I like to play by ear. I like to play with the energy that's coming to me, and then we have a good time together because it's like being a child. It's like pure, it's innocent. And I'm sure that you walk like that too in your way with your gifts, and it's just what I enjoy doing. So by me doing what I'm doing and me feeling that this is benefiting someone some way, you may not have an idea how much it's actually I'm in complete gratitude towards you. I just need to say that to you. It's not even a social platform thing. It's a human to human thing. Whether I'm getting used to this video and speaking to people and working on editing, the goal is to no longer edit and just speak. And I'm working on that, but I stare at a phone sometimes and I just I lose myself. But that usually doesn't happen when we're in person. Become familiar with your voices. It's crazy, right? I'm saying that. It's like, wow. People who meditate, they go crazy. There is a fine line between sanity and insanity. And if you have never experienced crazy, or feeling like, or not having had tipped off into the realm of insanity, then you're missing out, dude. you know, you're missing out, because you, if you never grow to that limitation, then how do you know consciously, I mean, that you're growing within your inner journey? Now, there are many ways, but being the state that we are with humanity, with the lower thinking mind yet still, and you and I are standing here working with this adversity of just being present and doing the best that we can, and having to go into hermit mode, right? Until humanity starts to wake up once again in this timeline, in this particular timeline. It's a time to galvanize. You chose, whether conscious or not, to maybe perhaps come into this non-crystalline body, which is a carbon-based body experience, which, because it's so dense here, and you have such a joyful way about yourself, and you're also kind of like probably the black sheep of your family, and you kind of like destroy anything that was taught to you by your parents. You probably, maybe you hated school, or maybe nobody went to school and you're the one that loved school, whichever way, right? And you did everything kind of like antagonistic, and you thought like you were just like an a-hole all this time, and maybe you were. I know I was so many times, right? It was the fire. You were burning even the lower aspects of the ancestors that were conditioning you. So you became like the warrior of your family because you made people think. You freaked them out. You probably freaked yourself out, and you almost probably died a couple of times. But you're here now, you know. And maybe if you did die, maybe we're talking right now. But you're here now. You're here now. And it's not to be afraid. But if you are afraid, because you're aware of these higher ranking entities that are working with you, they're coming and they're here. They've been here. They didn't bother you because you were working at some point in your life within the lower mind, but they didn't expect for you to rise. They really didn't. Rise you do, even as you fall. And once you remember that falling does catapult you 10,000 lives faster, you start to, without expectations, you start to accept the good, the bad, the dark. Because when the dark comes to you, you don't block it. You don't go, carajo, I'm sorry, Dios mío. You don't go like this, right? Anymore. You receive it. You receive it because love you are. And your fire burns stronger because that dark energy completes its cycle if it attempts to attack you directly. And once you know that, your ego mind says, well, I can't be attacked, but in the higher realms, it doesn't matter. But you're aware of that too. And when you breathe in that, accept that when you're doing it and fine-tuning yourself, best believe shit's gonna get real. That means keep walking, that you're shaking up the shit out of this planet. And it's going to start with your mind. And once you regalvanize and remember that that carbon body, it needs to burn, that's what creates your Christos, the reawakening, the upright of your spine, the waking up of the dormancy of your spine and your back into that, they say, Kundalini. Don't get lost with the song, the symphony of the words, that even the snake or the hidden dragon will bite you. But I'm the medicine man, so when I get bitten, I write prescriptions. I pay attention. Now I know how to work with the medicine. Be your own scientist. Be your own physician. Be your own dancer. Take the adversity. Look it in the eyes. And remember your breath.